Patrick Bet-David, the CEO of Valuetainment and host of the PBD podcast. Have you heard of it?
Friend of the show.
Friend, yes. Has been former guest of the show.
Former guest, friend of the
Patron
show.
saint of all struggling podcasts.
He appeared on Jubilee, which, if you've never seen it, it's a debate-style format where one person comes from a position, and then they surround that person with people who have counter-arguments, and then they debate different points. I've seen Jubilee clips. I did not know what Jubilee was until we started prepping for this. I'd like to give credit to these two guys as well as Connor, but these two guys were instrumental in helping prepare for this debate, just doing background research, finding different angles for us to be able to combat some of these socialist commies and their commie nonsense. But literally, thank you to Brandon and Humberto for helping with the preparation for this. It ended up going really well. We were in attendance as it happened. And Vinny said this, I don't remember the people there looking as, and I'm trying to be nice when I say this, freakishly weird as they did on camera, as they did in person. Watching it back, I'm like, I don't remember that person being there. But I remember seeing these people. They didn't nearly look as unhinged as they did when we went and watched this. It's almost like they put weirdo filters on everybody but Pat. Because every time somebody sits down, it's a person with no eyebrows and piercings, or a gentleman with very long hair talking about being around 13-year-olds all the time.
With a beard.
Yes, that one was.
Bearded dress.
And I believe that's one of the clips that went viral. But we have a bunch of the clips. This is PBD. On the Jubilee, it's 1 capitalist versus 20 socialists. Let's dive in. Connor, I'm actually going to turn it over to you since you pulled these clips. Can you set these clips up and let us know what we're watching?
So I have a selection here of some of the clips that are going around the internet. This is obviously not the full context of the video, which I believe is over 2 hours long.
And it's at like
An hour
1.4 million
45.
views.
Yeah, and it's a very intense debate between PBD and a bunch of different people, but I want to preface this. We did not pull a selection of clips just to make our CEO look good. We have the freedom to give commentary on these things. We're not, I mean, obviously not going to stand here and insult the guy who runs our company, but we are not, trying to run some propaganda thing of just, we pulled the selection of clips. I encourage you all to go watch the video, see where you agree and disagree with Patrick. That is the whole point of the debates. That's his whole goal in doing it. So when I show you these clips, these are not ones that we have curated of just trying to find the sizzle reel where Patrick looks really good and everyone else looks stupid. This is really an accurate summary of how this episode went. This is what everyone said. This is how they looked, how they talked, the way they presented themselves. So let's roll this first one, because this is one of the ones that was flying around like crazy after this episode.
Incentive is the engine of capitalism. Remove it and the system fails. My next claim is capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other system. My next claim is if all the money in the world were divided equally, it would return to the same pockets within 5 years. My final claim is the US is more socialist than capitalist today. If you hate the system, you're anti-socialist. I'm Patrick Bet-David. I'm an entrepreneur and founder of PBD Podcast. Today, I'm surrounded by 20 anti-capitalists.
So that was the teaser that Jubilee put out for the episode. So you can see you got kind of a survey of who shows up for this thing. Colorful cast of characters, to say the least. So let's get into this first one where PBD offers a girl who is a self-professed socialist an all expenses paid flight to relocate to the communist country of her choosing. How she says, those aren't communist countries, because that is the whole point that communists and socialists will try to argue, is that, well, real socialism has never been tried. So any example you can present to them, they will immediately dismiss.
And as far as the people in the background, so everybody's given these red flags. And when they feel that they have an opportunity, they want to chime in, they want to weigh in, they raise their red flag and wave it. If enough people raise their red flags, I believe it's the majority of people raising the red flags. And at that point, the person sitting down against Patrick has to get up and someone else takes their spot.
Yeah.
So if you've never seen it, that's why people are raising red flags in the background.
I don't know, but and then they run to the seat, and I don't know if I can get into weed work for this, but I always, because I had to watch all the episodes for preparing. I watched maybe like 20 of them. I was like, how come the 400-pound lady on the very back of the thing made it to the chair before the athletic guy on the other side? And there's a movie magic going on this show, but it was really funny. Like they never admitted that there was a communist country. Like, and one of the girls, she was like, yeah, we tried to make a communist country and it was sabotage. Every time it's sabotage. Every time it's like the capitalists turn it down. And none of them, because they could have talked to us afterwards, none of them wanted the one-way ticket to a communist country. None of them.
Now, most of them were, just to be transparent, very respectful. Afterwards,
100%.
Some of the people that Pat got into the most heated debates with came up afterwards, shook his hand, thanked him for his time. There were people that were there because they, from my understanding, the people that are on Jubilee did not know who they were going up against. So when Pat walked in, that was the first time that they knew who Pat was. I suspect otherwise. My takeaway was some of them may have been informed, not all of them, but certain people came with certain talking points that were very specific to Pat and his background in different businesses. There's no way that they could have known that without actually working for Pat or studying Pat or knowing about Pat.
But the minority.
Well, but that being said, they were very respectful. Afterwards, they came up, shook hands, thanked Pat for being respectful as well. It was very interesting to watch. I don't want to take shots at people's looks, but this is what I meant when I said some of the people looked very different from the way that they appeared in person to the way that they appeared on film, where they put some kind of weirdo filter on. Because this girl seems very nice. I'm assuming that she's a nice person. But something has gone wrong in your life when your eyebrows look like that and you're dressed like that. I'm just being honest.
They're like penciled on.
I am not one to critique other people's looks by any means, but that is some type of trauma that's going on in your life, and that's how you're lashing out.
And speaking of trauma, yeah, this girl certainly has some kind of trauma, as she discusses with Patrick, talking about her various mental issues, and he makes an offer to try to help with some of that.
Yeah, there used to be a day where people would be defensive about being labeled as mentally ill, but now people are like defensive about being labeled not mentally ill.
Well, it's almost like a badge of honor. Like it goes back to this victimhood mentality that we talk about a lot on the podcast, but I'm a victim of my circumstances. I'm disabled. Okay, I understand disabilities happen. That sucks. But like my son is also disabled. My son has what's called hemorrhoidopathy, which means one portion of his body actually grows larger than the other. There was a point in my life where I wasn't doing as well as I am today, where financially we were struggling, and I picked up second and third jobs in order to make sure that we could pay for the appointments for my son, not just to go to specialists, but also physical therapy, because he had to train to be able to walk normally because one side of his body was bigger than the other. So I feel bad for this poor girl because she does suffer from some type of disability, but I even feel worse because there's nobody in her life that cares enough to work hard enough to be able to afford for her to go see the doctors that she needs to go see. Rather, they just go, wow, you're disabled, you're a victim. No, you can change that. And she chooses not to.
This is where you do almost feel bad for people in these situations, because so many of them have something vaguely resembling a point before they devolve into just delusional identity politics, because the healthcare system in the United States is nuts. It's terrible. People can't afford stuff. The simple act of trying to go to the hospital to just get checked out for an emergency can put someone in debt for years if the situation is bad enough. But the point that no one is acknowledging for this girl's case is the existence of a specialist who could help with her condition is only possible in a free system like the United States. It's not possible under a socialized healthcare system because there's no incentive to specialize. You would lose any kind of person who has a specific area of focus that could help her with her, whatever genetic.
It says that.
What do you?
Oh, I heard
That's no. But Connor,
were you guys talking shit?
So she would lose access to anyone who has hyper-focused on her specific genetic condition. So, while there is a problem in the United States healthcare system, it's still the best available.
The thing is, the healthcare system is the best available, but the insurance system in America, that's what's broken. It's very broken. And to what you're saying, like, people talk about Cuban doctors. I don't know if you guys heard, like, everyone in Cuba can get to be a doctor or whatever.
That's why they make the same amount of money as a fucking plumber.
They use doctors in Cuba to barter with other countries for food, for everything. They make less than a taxi driver. All right, same with Venezuelan doctors. doctors. They do educate them to become a doctor, but when the country needs something, they will send them to another country and then get something in return. It's absolutely sad. Sad.
All right, we have 3 minutes left, so let's
We've got time
figure
for
out one more clip.
This one is also one going around because this gentleman has been applying for jobs
I
for
call
a very
bullshit
long
on this,
time.
by the way. The
Yeah.
amount of time it takes him to come up with
100%.
the amount of jobs that he actually says he applied to. There was a point where when I got laid off during the pandemic, I have a photo of it somewhere. I'll see if I can find it. I got laid off during the pandemic. I was called a reduction in force. I got laid off on June 8th of 2020, and I did not find work until mid-September of that year, so I was unemployed for about 3 months. During that time, I applied to dozens and dozens and dozens of jobs. I don't know how many right off the bat because it's been 5 years. At that point, I did know. I had Post-it notes of every single job that I applied for, and every time I'd hear back if it was positive, I'd move a Post-it note over here. If I didn't get the position was filled or I wasn't selected as a candidate, I moved it to no. When you're working and looking for a job, it is a 24-hour-a-day process. It's not something that you forget. So when this guy stumbles between when Pat asks how many jobs and then the guy gives a number, I go, bullshit. He just made that number up because it sounded good.
Yeah.
Here's a clip. The guy's applied for hundreds of jobs, according to him, but hasn't had any luck until Patrick Bet-David came along.
Poison.
Yeah, I can't imagine why he's not getting hired. He sounds like such a pleasure to be around.
We dodged a bullet with that one. Can you imagine?
I mean, he's dressed as well as most of our video editors, but
He didn't even sell it for a second though. Like the second he offered it, you started seeing the red flags right away. Not the red flags in the audience, like the red flags with his personality. I mean, you should if you're truly desperate for something, is there a single job you wouldn't take that's legal that you wouldn't take if you were truly desperate? You just described.
I'd be
the
like,
shit-
okay, let's do it, and I will go. I'm no longer an anti-capitalist. I will go sit down right now.
yeah, and I can speak to that because similar to what Rob described before we watched the clip, a few years ago I got laid off from the company where I was working. I spent 2 months unemployed trying to find a job. Ended up going back to a temporary job that was only supposed to be for a month that ended up turning into 11. It was a job that, provided for my wife and I while I was, out of my career. Not what I wanted to do long term. It was, really just a holdover. In that time, over the course of that 10, 11 months, I sent out 97 job applications, including an application to Valuetainment. I never received a response to any of them. Now, this was over 3 years ago when our corporate structure and our recruitment process was very different from what it is now.
There was one guy.
It was one guy. I know the guy. The guy who ultimately did my interview when I got here is the guy that my application would have gone to. But so the job market is very difficult for these people who are trying to apply right now. And most of what you see if you are on Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever, scrolling a career page, it's all fake. It's all random corporate middleman nonsense. And you're applying to an AI that's looking for keywords in a cover letter. So it is a very difficult thing to find a job. So when a guy like this gets something dropped into his lap, because we all know Patrick well enough to say 100% certainty. If that guy had said yes, that guy would have had an interview immediately after that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's no guarantee he would have worked out here long term. Clearly, with an attitude like that, it would not have happened. But he would have gotten the interview. And if he had been able to present himself well enough, he would have gotten the job. But for him to immediately turn his nose up at it and, I'm just asking questions. No, that's not what you're doing. Because you started with a point of desperation and then suddenly, I don't want that. So are you desperate or not?
Pickiness though, I'm multiple people in there. They're like, yeah, I want to work right now, but I just need to do something ethical and that's aligned with my moral values.
Yeah, remember that guy. But
what are
I
you
don't
talking
know.
about?
These people in general, to close the conversation, these people are so predictable.
97% accuracy rate.
I wish they had a camera because we're sitting next to each other and we're just bumping each other because word by word we predicted everything that these guys were going.
And I was like, no, this is too crazy. This is too far-fetched. They wouldn't say this. I think that this is what I would try to make an argument with if I had to, but there's no way they would say this. And they said everything that we said.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was absolutely nuts.
And like I said before, this isn't just us sitting around and patting ourselves on the back for, Patrick did such a great job. If we had more time, I'm sure we could sit around and talk about points where we might disagree with Patrick.
Anticipate everything.
Points where Patrick could have done better. And we've all had conversations, Umberto and I specifically, about our own difficulties and complaints about a purely capitalist system. Capitalism is not the perfect system.
Well, we don't have it right now
because it's not a political.
That's the funny thing is we have socialism right now.
But my point about capitalism is that it is great for economics, but it's not a moral framework. It's not a whole worldview. It is one approach to economics. And we could get into all that. But the point is, nobody did. None of these people did that. They all just went with the most predictable. Oh, you want grandma to die working in the sawmill? It's like, well, first of all the sawmill jobs went to Indians on H-1B visas, so there's no work for grandma even if she wanted it. But that's not what we're saying. They went with the most cartoonish, cutout, characterizations of capitalism. And I think that's why they didn't win.
It's hard for them to get to just this phase alone, so we gotta be patient with them.
So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.